I've got the hockey on it, I hope you don't mind. It's kind of like a Subway Surfers type of thing. I don't really have too much experience using nothing products. I've daily driven the CMF Buds Pro 2 for review purposes, and I did love them. And I have a friend who daily drives both the Buds Pro 2 and the Watch Pro 2, and he also loves both of them. But the Nothing Phone 3, where's the phone? But the Nothing Phone 3A was the first ever Nothing branded product that I've ever used, let alone daily driven. The precedent here with CMF products might lead you to believe that my answer is going to be the same here, but no, you're absolutely right. This phone, especially at the $380 price tag that it starts at, is an incredible phone. Not even just great for $380, just overall great. For $220 less than the iPhone 16e, you're getting 2 more camera lenses, double the refresh rate, 3 extra lights on the back, and an overall much better phone. Apple, you need to take notes, because this is how you do a budget mid-range phone. My name is Harry, you're watching Probably Hades, and this is my review of the Nothing Phone 3A. One category that admittedly Apple does beat out Nothing here is the unboxing experience. Now, do I really actually care at all about how cool the cardboard is when my main focus for my phone is the price? No, of course not. But even with that in mind, the unboxing experience here is pretty nice. Inside the box, you'll get the phone itself, this wildly overkill SIM ejector, a USB-C to C cable, branded but not braided, and the standard documentation. Guys, can I be honest with you for a sec? Seeing this Severance microchip look at SIM ejector tool in the box after finding out they ditched the USB-C cable with transparent connector ends in the 3A series is really disappointing, because that other cable looks cool as hell. There's a screen protector applied out of the box behind the standard packaging protector, and outside of that, the setup is essentially the exact same as a standard Android phone. Setting this up actually really reminds me of setting up a Pixel. There's no bloatware, you only need a Google account. There's a Nothing account, but it's not in the setup. It's an optional feature you can set up later for a few bonus features. And it's just filled with this beautifully designed and unique Nothing OS language you've come to know and love if you've ever used a Nothing or CMF phone before. That lack of bloat and nice design continues into the main user experience as well, and it makes Nothing OS easily one of the smoothest and cleanest Android skins on the market, maybe second only to Pixel's Android skin. You're not booting up this phone to see Facebook, a bunch of Microsoft apps, Amazon, whatever the hell, 2 messaging apps because screw it, why not, and a bunch of other things you didn't ask for. Just Nothing apps for what they have made, and Google apps for what they haven't. The only exception to that is Nothing Gallery and Google Photos are both installed, probably because Nothing Gallery doesn't have cloud backup and Google Photos does. Using this phone is fun and smooth, and performance remains solid in essentially every scenario. And similarly to Google's phones, you've got all of Google's AI built right in, whether you like it or not. From Circle to Search to Gemini replacing Google Assistant. I personally find that okay, especially considering Nothing seems to be pretty bearish on most current implementations of generative AI at the moment, with Carl Pei going as far as calling most of it bullshit in the Phone 3A launch keynote.
This is for other people?
Yeah. So we're going to have a little look at the AI now. AI is integrated into our society now, so how important was it for you to get that right within the phones?
I think most consumer AI is bullshit.
Yeah.
And they don't really have much of their own AI stuff here. The apps that Nothing have made here are almost perfect apps. They're lightweight, they're not packed with bloat, and they just work. If you're in Nothing's camera, which has these awesome shutter sounds, you can use the glyphs as a more balanced flash for photos and videos, or you can use them to count down the self-timer. Nothing's weather app has a really nice layout with dot matrix iconography for weather conditions. Their gallery organizes nicely without getting in your way, and yeah, you start to get the idea. Nothing OS is really stable as well. I've had a couple moments where apps will just lock up or not work correctly, but these could also honestly be chalked down to poor Android optimization. But Nothing's Android skin isn't just Pixel UI with some dot matrix fonts slapped on top of it. There are some really nice additional quality of life features that add up for a great experience. Notably for me, as someone deep into Apple's ecosystem, Nothing OS brings in an extra bit of AirPods support, allowing me to check up on the battery life and even see little dedicated AirPod icons in the notification shade. I would love this to get more fleshed out to be more in line with some third-party apps that allow for in-ear detection and switching between A and C modes, but this is great for now. God, imagine losing to Vegas. Crazy. I did notice that AirPods 4 don't have full support yet, and because of this, the functionality didn't properly kick in until I paired my AirPods Pro 2. when it then just picked the other pair up as a set of original AirPods. I just went in and changed them to AirPods 3 and all was good because they look exactly the same. If that's not convincing enough for you as an iPhone user, they've also got the Smart App Drawer, which organizes your app drawer in an iOS style layout with blocks of different categories. Interestingly, as far as I can tell, this doesn't just look at the Play Store category and dump it in there. They use their own machine learning for it, which is really helpful, particularly as apps that don't come from the Play Store, like the Epic Game Store app and Fortnite, for example, can also get properly organized, unlike what happens if you sideload an app from Alt Store or Sinulus on iOS. I think it'd be really cool to harness this to create my own custom categories. I'd love to be able to create a wearables category, for example, and automatically have Meta View, Nothing X, Ringcon, Lunar Ring, and any other future wearable apps I use on this phone automatically drop into that folder. But the real software feature that sets this phone apart from every other Android device, and even other Nothing phones, is the Essential space. There's an extra dedicated button just here under the power button, the Essential key, which you can press to capture your screen, including a camera view and a voice or typed note, which is then automatically saved and organized into your space, creating reminders if it applies. This is insanely cool. It's basically a second brain built into the device that you already have with you. You don't need to carry around a little rabbit thing that automatically figures everything out. Most second brain apps like Obsidian and Notion rely on you organizing everything yourself, but not Essential Space. As you'd expect, being able to make a note about anything on my phone or anything that I'm looking at without breaking my workflow by opening up another app is incredibly helpful. The first time I used it, I just pointed my camera at the Minecraft F3 screen and told it to remember my house coordinates, and it just did it. It grabbed the photo, pulled my coordinates from the wall of text in the debug screen, and transcribed them. So when I opened Essential Space by double-clicking the Essential key, it was just right there waiting for me. In another instance, I pulled up an article in Chrome and told it to remind me about the article in a couple of days, and it did. Perfectly. I didn't have to zoom in on that F3 photo to find my coordinates manually. I didn't have to leave Chrome to paste that article into my to-do list app. It just worked. Essential Space is seriously what I need from Apple Intelligence, and I think that Apple could nicely integrate something similar into Siri and take advantage of their suite of productivity apps to make it work. That is, assuming that they're able to ship anything else from Apple Intelligence aside from AI slop image generation and summarize this. However, Essential Space is still early software and it's far from perfect. There's a few features incoming like automatic organization into more categories and like a meeting transcriber thing, but they're not out yet, so I can't review them. And that's also just like what isn't here yet. There are issues here as well. And starting with the biggest one that they can't fix in software, unfortunately, it's a fair bit easy to accidentally hit that button. They do a pretty good job of differentiating it by feel. It's glossy instead of matte, and it's a very slightly different shape that's very easy to pick apart from the power button without looking, but even then it's still easy to bump or accidentally hold down while picking up the phone. This could be a concern for you, especially since audio recordings are automatically sent off device to process the transcription and grab all the takeaways. And if you don't want to use Essential Space at all, even though it's really cool, there isn't a native way to rebind this button to something else. Even using a button remapper and disabling the Essential Space app entirely is still finicky, because it will perform the other action and also start recording or taking a note. I think it could be really nice to see Essential Space break free from the shackles of being stuck on my phone. As of right now, Essential Space doesn't integrate with anything else. I can't have reminders sent to my TickTick. I can't have it remind me of something when I get to a location. I can't have my notes sent to Google Keep, for example. While that does result in a great experience, it's all nicely vertically integrated, it's all in one place, it can make it more difficult to stay in focus if I need to pull a reminder or a note while I'm working on another device. I think that at minimum, a web UI is in order at some point to be able to access my notes on a laptop or another computer. Back to those AI transcriptions, they're usually pretty accurate, but you're out of luck if it messes up, as there's no way to edit your transcription or the summary once it's been transcribed. On the Even G ones, for example, with quick notes, you can just open up one of those notes and change the text as much as you want in the transcription and in the summary if it messes up, which I would love to see here. And by the way, those glasses are really cool. You should check out my review of them in one of the corners. There is more processing than the G ones, like how it generates a suggested list of subtasks for each task you create, which could be why they don't allow editing, considering it would have to regenerate every edit, but I feel like they could simply not do that. The final gripe I have with Essential Space is the lack of an archive here. Well, not entirely. Completed tasks can go to the to-do archive, but there isn't any way to move a standard note to an archive. The only way to clean up your main interface from notes you might not actively need but still want to keep is to permanently delete them. Now, to sum up the software, it's just really clean Android. But software is nothing if the hardware on the phone is terrible. Luckily, no it's not, Nothing have really stepped up their game here, especially from the 3A's predecessor, the 2A, where the 2A had all plastic rails and back. Sounds familiar. The 3A replaces those with aluminium and glass for the rails and back respectively, even including metal around the camera bump for an even more premium feel. That premium feel continues in everyday use. The haptics, for example, were one of the first things I noticed when setting up this phone, because unlike most other budget phones, these are incredible. They can occasionally struggle. Missing a beat when you're typing too fast is one of the biggest ones that I've noticed, but they're excellent overall. Getting into the phone to actually experience those haptics is even easier with the underscreen fingerprint reader right here. In my week or so with the phone, I never really noticed any false negatives, although I also haven't needed to unlock my phone immediately after taking a shower or washing my hands, and there is face unlock through the selfie camera if you do that often enough. If you are the type to unlock your phone after a shower or just really be anywhere near water, you'll be happy to know that we do have IP64 water and dust resistance here. That's complete protection against any ingress of dust and protection from water splashing against the phone in any direction. Nothing does claim to have submersion tests in their durability testing pipeline, but the official rating states splash protection, and that's where I'd purposely draw the line. The only actual issue that I've run into with this phone's build quality is that the buttons are a little bit wobbly. Yeah, who gives a f***? That and the complete lack of eSIM support on this phone for some reason. Unless you're in Japan, you're stuck with physical SIM cards unless you buy a 3A Pro. If you're traveling with the Nothing phone, welcome back to the old days of swapping out your SIMs and hoping you don't lose them. Although, to give it credit, if this phone did have eSIM, I wouldn't have gotten these flower seeds that came when I got an actual, like a physical SIM. Once you have figured out how to get around the lack of eSIM, the cellular and GPS radios have been rock solid in the admittedly well-covered city of Sydney. And I've had no service issues where I would usually expect great service on the Vodafone network. And on the topic of phone stuff, phone calls. Calls from this phone sound great with very crisp audio using voice over Wi-Fi. This is audio recorded through my iPhone, and as you can tell, it sounds pretty good. And now somehow I've gotten this far into the video and I've only mentioned the Glyph lights once. So yeah, they're right here on the back of the device. The 3A keeps with the theme of having a much lower Glyph light count compared to the flagship Nothing lineup, where those phones have them right around the camera, all around the wireless charging coil, and a couple in the corners. The 3A just has these three that circle around the camera bump. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got software features within Nothing's own apps, like the self-timer in the camera app, and the implementation you've probably seen 100 times if you've been on tech YouTube in the last 5 years, in the form of getting a call or text and having them light up and let you know. You've also got more system-wide functionality too though. You can set a Glyph timer from your notification shade or a home screen widget that counts down with one of the lights. You can see your volume at a glance when you're changing it. It'll light up for payments with Google Pay, and you can even use it to indicate progress in certain third-party apps, like the time left in a Gcal event or the progress on an Uber or a Zomato delivery. They're such a fun gimmick, and there's probably more that I haven't discovered yet. But it is really nice to see Nothing commit to building these in kind of just for fun, while also keeping them useful. Now, when you actually turn the phone around and stop oogling at the back and the sides, you can, one, actually use it, because that's where the screen is, and two, you can admire that screen as well. Nothing has packed in an almost 6.8-inch AMOLED display in here, with a 1080 by 2392 resolution and up to 120 Hz adaptive refresh. Apple. Yeah, I went on about a minute-long rant there. I feel like that horse has kind of been beaten to death though. So basically all of that to say that the screen has 3000 nits of peak brightness when using HDR. It's HDR 10 plus certified. There's 800 nits typical brightness and 1300 nits outside. It looks great for taking photos. It's easy to see navigation in the bright Sydney sun. And it's overall just good to use, good to watch content on. I also didn't mention, but I would like to, that there is no HDMI out over the USB-C port, so if you do need a bigger display, you're stuck with wireless casting. If you are watching content, it's also great for hitting that subscribe button and helping me on the road to 10K. It's free and you can always undo it if you change your mind. This is a modern phone review in 2025, so actually it's a camera review, and we've got three here on the table today. which seems to be a rarity for a lot of mid-range phones from larger companies. When we're looking in a similar price range, the iPhone 16e has one 48 megapixel shooter, the Pixel 9a has a 48 megapixel wide and a 13 megapixel ultra wide. The phone 3a on the other hand has a 50 megapixel main shooter, a 50 megapixel 2x telephoto, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide. While I would have personally liked to see some extra detail in the ultra wide, I'm not calling that out as a deal breaker, I'm just mentioning it so you know. And it still does look pretty good. But there really is no way to escape that specific camera, especially considering that nothing uses the same ultra wide on the 3A Pro as well, but simply replaces the 2x telephoto with a 3x periscope lens. If you're the type to take a lot of selfies or join a lot of video calls, there's also a 32 megapixel front-facing shooter just for you. Video was one of the first things that I tested, seeing as, you know, it's kind of my thing. You can shoot it up to 1080p 60 or 4K 30 using the main lens, and you'll be able to do a pretty standard 1080p 30 if you want to use all of them. On the front camera, you can shoot either 1080p 30 or 60, but no 4K. The video stabilization, no matter which resolution you pick, seems to be pretty rock solid and tends to take a more aggressive approach, without having the obvious look of software stabilization. And as you can hear, the audio sounds pretty good as well. It can be almost too easy to cover the microphone with your hand by mistake though, which you'll want to keep in mind, especially if you're shooting in landscape like I am. New with the 3A are these camera presets here in Nothing's camera app. They're essentially pre-configured filters that can change a bunch of settings on the fly, allowing you to dial in just the right image and save it to replicate for yourself or to share with others. You can use these to save essentially any camera setting, including using custom LUTs or lookup tables for a more dialed in color profile. You can use the ones included with your phones if you don't feel like making them, and like I mentioned, you can download them from other users. There seems to be a community starting to thrive already, and I can only imagine that it will grow further as some of the older Nothing devices get access to this functionality. I didn't really like how I talked about the photos here. I was trying a thing where I was going to pick out a few photos and really rip them apart, but it didn't work as well as I wanted to, and it ended up being 6 minutes of me ranting about photos. So essentially what you need to know is that the HDR implementation, Ultra XDR, is pretty good. It has a nice effect, it looks great on my MacBook display, and it looks pretty good on the Nothing one, but obviously they're very different classes of devices. Portrait mode shots look pretty good as well. There are some minor hair strands that don't get included in the cutout, but that seems to be an issue with almost every portrait mode implementation on the market at the moment, except for maybe next-gen portraits on the 15 Pro and up, but even still then, it does happen occasionally. The 50 megapixel sensors on both the main and the telephoto tend to really assist in capturing detail. I've got a photo of a Pokemon card here where you can see the individual grains and the details in the printing, which is great. The main sensor also does have a lot of natural depth of field without any sort of portrait mode processing. It can occasionally struggle with a bit of motion blur on sensors that aren't the main, so if I'm moving or my subject is moving, it tends to not be able to freeze that motion as well as an iPhone in some cases. And the 8 megapixel ultra wide, it does struggle to capture detail on this image with this gallery. You cannot read or percept any of the text on those cards on the photos underneath. I'm going to let the photos roll and I'm going to be back with the rest, with the pricing, performance, and battery life. Also go follow me on Instagram, I posted all of those photos there before this video.
Across the room, I wanna meet you at a slow dance. I wanna meet you, but it's too soon. I wanna meet you, but I can't speak. Or dead across the room. See Snoopy? I'm gonna eat him.
Oh, he's chocolate.
I wanted to add here that wireless charging is not available on this phone, and by extension, neither is Qi2/Android MagSafe. It is a shame, but this phone does charge from 0 to 100 in under an hour, and 0 to 50 in just under 20 minutes, which definitely, in my mind at least, helps make up for it. And so does the incredible battery performance that I've seen, which I'll talk about now. Battery life is also great on this phone, just like the wired charging. I typically average anywhere between 2.5 to 4.5 hours of screen on time in an average day, and I'm typically ending that day at 10 or 11 PM around the 40 to 50% mark. Right now, I've been up since about 8 AM, it's 1 PM, I'm at 87% battery, so that's pretty good. On my biggest day, in terms of like what I was using, I had a day in Sydney with heavy camera use where I shot most of those samples, and GPS navigation, screen brightness cranked to max all day, couple rounds of Fortnite on the train home, and 4 hours and 20 minutes of screen on time. Hell yeah, legalizer baby, woo! I finished out my day and plugged in at around 9:30 PM with about 20% left. My worst day in terms of screen on time in the last week was when I came down with some flu symptoms that just knocked me out for a bit, which led to, don't laugh, which led to just under 7 hours of screen on time. Don't laugh at me. I'm solely talking about this to show that the Phone 3a kept up. I finished my extremely productive day of doom scrolling Instagram at 2 in the morning with 27% battery remaining. The performance here takes a pretty big jump, especially for the A series of Nothing phones, as it's the first one to get a Snapdragon processor. We're jumping up from the MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Pro of the 2A to the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 of the 3A. This is not a flagship processor by any means, but it flies through almost every day-to-day task that I have. From my to-do list, to doom scrolling Instagram, to watching YouTube, and even some occasional Fortnite. If you're interested, it runs at about 30 to 50 FPS, and it's very playable. I came 5th with my first game in the Sabrina Carpenter skin on the train. I forgot to take a photo, you'll have to believe me. And you're getting all of that for just $380. I said it at the start, I said it just then, and I'm going to say it again. $380. That is an incredible value for the amount of phone you're getting here. And considering you've also got 6 years of security patches and 3 years of new Android releases, you could keep this phone for a solid while. It is an embarrassment to the iPhone 16e and even beats out the Pixel 9a by about $100. Obviously, it's not an iPhone, you're not getting iOS, the ecosystem, all of that jazz that keeps me locked in and unable to switch phones. But you're not going to do much better for this price. When I bought this phone personally in Australian dollars, it cost me $539 for the base model with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. I'm checking the US website as I wrote that script. It doesn't even seem to be an option for the base model anymore. That $380 US is for the best 3A you can buy, with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. If you spend a little bit more and bump up to the 3A Pro, you're getting a bit more optical zoom, up from 2x to 3x, double the software zoom from 30x to 60x, a 50 megapixel front camera, eSIM support, and a quirkier design for $459. Although the Pro and standard 3A are actually very similar. Same processor, same main lens, same display, etc. So if you couldn't tell, yes, I really love this phone and I would recommend that you buy it if you're looking for a phone in this price range. The only reason that might not go back into my secondary phone spot is because it doesn't fold in half. But that is a strong might, because this phone has been an absolute joy to use. And I really don't miss One UI. Look, if you're planning to spend 4 digits on a phone, I'm not saying to go for this instead of an iPhone 16 Pro Max or a Galaxy S25 Ultra. Like I said in my CMF Buds Pro 2 review, they were great earbuds overall, but they weren't replacing my AirPods Pro 2. The Nothing Phone 3a is an incredible phone, made even better by the price. But look, it's not replacing my 15 Pro Max, and it probably shouldn't replace your 4-digit costing phone either. But if you're looking to spend a little less on your next phone, maybe you've got a teenager going into high school, needs a smartphone, and you don't want to spend too much, this is a damn good way to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. This review's been a bit of a long one, so thanks for sticking around till the end. If you want more content like the photo samples I mentioned earlier, you can follow me over on Instagram, which is where I'm most active, or you can head over to my Blue Sky and everything else with the links on screen and in the description below. If you're not sick of me yet after half an hour, 43 minutes, you can click over here to check out my review of the iPhone 15 Pro Max that I did just over a year ago, or you can click over here to check out whatever YouTube thinks you'll like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.